Hi guys, my name is Chris. I'm making a quick video about why I think the iPad is a great accessory for GMs and people who play role-playing games. So for context, I am a many-time GM and occasional player. I run games like 5th edition and Stars Without Number, and I'm the person in my gaming group who is the most into the hobby. So I'm the person that buys the most PDFs, I buy a lot of accessories, I buy, way too much dye. I think that a lot of gaming groups are like this, where one person has like a disproportionate or a greater degree of interest in the hobby than other people. So being a GM and being an avid consumer of RPG PDFs, I'm always interested in tools that help me be a more effective GM and help me consume RPG content more effectively. And I think the iPad is really, really good at that. Like a lot of GMs, I would consume my PDFs on my laptop. That's how I historically would interact with RPG PDFs. And, there's a lot of advantages to it. You have a keyboard, you can just hit, Control or Command F and sift through a PDF very quickly and generally fairly effectively. But the reason why I like reading PDFs on the iPad is because the iPad is more like a physical book than a laptop is. It just has, the dimensions of it are more similar to an actual physical book that you can page through than a laptop is. I think that's pretty obvious. The disadvantage is that an iPad doesn't have a keyboard like an actual laptop does. And so if you're the kind of person that wants to very quickly type in something, you'll have to do it with the actual sort of on-screen keyboard, or get a separate sort of portable Bluetooth keyboard, but that kind of compromises the portability of the iPad. Another thing that I love about the iPad, as someone who loves RPGs, is that the iPad's a really great content creation device. I actually use the iPad and the accompanying Apple Pencil. Actually, it's not accompanying. You have to purchase this separately, and it's kind of pricey. It's like $129. I use this Apple Pencil to draw dungeon maps. I'll put some footage up on screen, but I use an app called Procreate to draw maps in the style of, I think his name is Don John. He's like a very, I forget the exact name. Dyson Logos is his name. He has a very particular sort of style to his dungeons. I actually draw maps according to his style. I mimic his style in this app called Procreate, and it's super easy. It's such a pleasurable experience using the Apple Pencil to draw maps using Procreate. So really, really great way to create actual content that you can use in your game. You can create dungeons on your iPad and then use that in your game and then reference it. You can export it to a PDF, then draw like notes on top of it, in OneNote, for example. And then you have a sort of like a fairly high quality dungeon map with notes that you can use in your game. I think that's awesome. And it's really easy to sort of create the content and then add additional like annotations that you can use at the table, all within one device. That's pretty cool. Another thing that I like to create on the iPad is I actually purchased something called the Epic Isometric Pack. You can find this on DriveThruRPG. It's a collection of really cool digital assets that you can piece together. I also use Procreate to connect these pieces together and create dungeon maps. I haven't used a Epic Isometric Pack map yet in a game because I don't do a lot of online gaming, but if I ever run a game in Roll20, I'm going to use the maps that I've created using that toolkit, using that sort of collection of digital assets for my maps. Now let's talk about some of the trade-offs, some of the downsides of using the iPad. The iPad is expensive. When I bought this iPad with the Apple Pencil, it came out to like a little bit over $1,000, so pretty pricey. Luckily, I think that this model, which is the 2018 11-inch model, I think this model is getting cheaper, and there's older models that you can get for some really crazy discounts and sales. If you're all you need is an iPad that supports the Apple Pencil, in my opinion, to get the kind of experience that I'm describing. If you can find an iPad that supports the Apple Pencil, I think you'll be in a good spot. Now, I would get an iPad with similar dimensions. I wouldn't get one of the smaller iPads because I just think it's a little too cramped. But if you can get one that's around 11 inches or 10 inches, I think that you'll have enough space to write notes and draw dungeons. Another disadvantage is that you don't have sort of the the pleasure of handling a physical book. That's an obvious disadvantage, but obviously some people really love collecting the physical book. I love it too. If I had more space, I would buy a physical copy for every one of my books. I would buy a physical version of every RPG that I was interested in, and I'd also get a PDF for actual use. Just because I like having a bookcase of RPGs behind me. You know, I love, I don't literally have one here because I'm not in my room, but I love that. I love having a collection of RPGs. Unfortunately, I'm in a place in my life where I don't really have the space to just accumulate more and more RPG books. So yeah, in conclusion, I think that the iPad is a really, really good option for DMs and GMs who want to consume RPG content more effectively and who want to create content for their games. It's so much fun creating dungeons on this thing, using the stylus, using the Apple Pencil. It's expensive, but I think that if you have the budget for it, this can make a lot of the, I guess you can say, the tedious aspects of GMing a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier. So those are my thoughts about why you should consider the iPad as a DM accessory.